The first F.E.A.R combined elements from both psychological horror movies and the most badass action films we've ever seen. F.E.A.R 2 Project Origin attempts to return us to that very same feeling of slam-bang action, coupled with disturbing images and creepy paranormal occurrences. The game does a great job for the most part, keeping with the reputation laid out by the first game, and offers a story that is much easier to follow this time. Unlike the first F.E.A.R, which was PC exclusive, with a scaled-down port released on consoles a couple of years later, F.E.A.R 2 has been released as a market-wide title on all major systems except the Wii, of course, albeit the console versions are still scaled back to fit the hardware.
Nice of you to join us, sunshine.
Beginning 15 minutes before the end of the last game, F.E.A.R 2 puts the player in the combat boots of Beckett, a Delta Force operative tasked with apprehending the maniacal Armacam executive Genevieve Aristide. The deal goes south after events from the first game lead to a nuclear detonation, and Beckett wakes up on an operating table in a mysterious medical facility. From here, things get real twisted, especially since Alma, the antagonist from the first game, is now free to roam the Earth at her leisure. This is not a good thing, but to say anything more than that would spoil the game. Suffice to say that, just like Alma, this game is all kinds of messed up, and it enjoys reminding you of that every chance it gets. The gameplay will feel familiar to fans of the series and user-friendly to any first-person shooter junkie. You mostly go from point A to point B, shooting your way through squads of clone soldiers and rent-a-cops as you collect body armor, health packs, and an array of different weapons along the way. F.E.A.R's signature feature is the slow-mo ability, which allows players to slow down time and add some John Woo sauce to the action. The protagonist in the first F.E.A.R had a very unique reason for possessing this power. Beckett gains the ability after the aforementioned operation he undergoes at the beginning of the game. Differences and additions include a more simplified health system, with armor acting as a health bar extension, the player being limited to carrying only 3 health packs at a time, and the ability to carry 4 weapons instead of the usual 3. Enemy AI is still impressive. That doesn't mean they won't get caught in a loop every now and then, but the overall AI system is relatively glitch-free. You'll also encounter both high-tech and supernatural mini-boss enemies, which present an occasional challenge between fighting the normal grunt-like enemies. Another cool addition are a few instances where you'll get to pilot a suit of power armor, complete with chain guns, missiles, and some really cool predator vision. Contrary to the mini-boss battles, these sequences make you feel like the boss as you bulldoze your way through crowds of enemy soldiers. The first F.E.A.R did such a good job making us feel so uneasy all the time, it's difficult to imagine how Monolith could have made that feeling of uneasiness even worse, but they've certainly done it. This is partially due to the fact that they've mastered the technique at this point, drawing influence from certain Japanese horror movies, but also due to the impressive technology they brought to the table. The high-res textures of every model and environment look great, but the sheer amount of effects that the game throws at you, particularly during the supernatural freak sequences, are all done amazingly well. Sound is even more impressive than the graphics, however, and any gamer with a 5.1 system should be ready to crap their pants at a moment's notice. This kind of detail is exactly what the game needs because it draws you right into the game world, and it's good to know that Monolith's custom tech is still up to specs, even in today's market. The Versus multiplayer has also been expanded upon. It's not as robust as games like Call of Duty 4 or Resistance 2, but like that of the first F.E.A.R, the multiplayer is not just tacked on content. The developers did a good job balancing the weapons as well as making the maps more or less asymmetrical to keep the combat interesting. It would have been nice to see a few more maps to choose from though. Each player can customize up to 3 classes, deciding which weapons and grenades they want before they jump into the combat, and there's a good variety of different modes to play, including everything from mindless deathmatch and team deathmatch, to objective-based modes like Blitz, which is more attack and defend, or Armored Front, a territorial mode giving each team a suit of power armor. There's a 16-player cap, some interesting modes, and while most of the emphasis was still placed on the single player, the multiplayer is still a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering where this was.
F.E.A.R 2 is a great mix of first-person action and psychological horror. The single player does a good job making the player feel uncomfortable at all times, the action is still intense, and the story is easier to follow than that of the first game. If there's one caveat, it's that the game is dangerously short, lasting only 5 to 6 hours before the campaign ends. There's plenty of intel items to collect, but this might not be enough incentive for some gamers to play through again, next to the modest amount of multiplayer options. Everything else about the game hits all the right notes. The atmospheric level of terror never lets up from start to finish, and the action maintains an excellent level of pacing. If one thing can be said about the game, it's that it really is a great experience while it lasts. Let's just hope that Monolith's next installment in the series lasts a little longer.
You'll feel a little pinch now.
I've seen the evil I've unleashed. My dreams consumed by fear.